Hello, this video is for the completion of the Pillowcase project, Fremont Christian School Distance Learning. We have attached now the cuff and the accent piece and the main body. We've given it a good press, and so the cuff is away from the accent piece, and so the accent piece is pressed up away from the body, and we have a nice clean seam there. Now, some of you, I've already cut your fabrics equal lengths, I hope, but some of you may need to equal out your lengths. For instance, I already did this step, but my cuff and accent piece were longer than my main body fabric. So what I had to do was I had to take a ruler. Let's say this is my cuff hanging out here like this. I put the ruler along the raw edge of my main body fabric, and then I took a pencil and I just drew up on the up on the fabric, and once I had a straight line there on my fabric, then I took scissors and I cut this, making this even. So we would accomplish this a much easier and a much better way in class, but this is the way we will do it in light of this project. Okay, so I'm ready to pin this together. I'm going to match the top of the cuff on one side with the top of the cuff on the other. And I'm going to pin it with my raw edges even, perpendicular, and I have the top pretty well matched there. I also want to try to match where my accent colors come together. So I put the pin through this side there, and I came out, and I did a good job. Now, if yours don't match, it's because your seam allowance was not perfectly the same, that 1/4 inch on when you sewed in your accent piece. So if you're really unhappy with it, you'd have to rip it out and start over. At this point, I would try to make do with what you have. Match it as best as you can, from probably starting from here to here. And mine does match from here to here. Okay, so I've pinned it. I've pinned it across the bottom. I am not, notice the word not, I am not going to sew this edge over here. It doesn't need sewn. It's been already done. I mean, there's a fold there. There's no raw edges, so I don't need to cover anything. Now, again, I want to remind you, do this with your wrong sides together and your right sides out when you fold and pin this. Wrong sides together. Here's my wrong sides. Right sides out. Now I'm going to start here and line this up with the 1/4 inch line that's on my sewing machine. Also, I don't know about your machine, but my machine is really kind of easy, because if I keep the right side of the presser foot on the edge of my fabric, that is 1/4 inch. Okay, so we're going to start there. Again, I always start with my needle in the fabric. And I'm going to sew all the way to the bottom of the case, stopping 1/4 inch from the edge. And I might want to take a few walking stitches there so that I can pivot stitch to sew across the bottom. So here I go. You're going to need a back stitch or tie a back stitch here So I'm going to sew forward a ways, needles in the fabric. I'm going to back stitch a little bit, come forward again. Because this is a strain point when you put the pillow in the pillowcase, I might want to do that again. Okay, now I'm going to come forward, and I'm going to, taking my pins out as I go, I'm going to sew 1/4 inch all the way down my pillowcase. That extra noise you heard there, nothing wrong. That's just sewing through all the thicknesses there at the seam line of the cuff and the accent piece and the edge of the main body fabric. That is very thick, and so you're going to hear a little stress from the machine as it sews through all those thicknesses. Okay, I've come to the bottom. I'm 1/4 inch from the edge. I'm going to put using my balance wheel, I'm going to leave the needle down in the fabric, and now I'm going to lift my presser foot, pivot my fabric. See how smoothly that pivots? And now I have the bottom edge lined up with the edge of my foot with a 1/4 inch seam allowance line. I'm going to put my presser foot back down. Don't try to sew with it up. It won't go well. Put it down, and now I'm going to start sewing again. Remember, as you come to pins, to remove them. Whoops. I don't know what that pin is doing there. Anyway, it got there. Removed it. Okay, I'm to the edge. I'm going to backstitch again. Come forward, backstitch, and forward, and cut my thread. Okay. My machine cuts the thread for me. I know that's awfully nice. Okay, so I have, and it's pretty straight, a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around the outside of my pillowcase. Now you're thinking, what? That's not going to work. It shows. Well, this is where the magic happens. This is called a flat felt seam, very similar to the seam that you put into, is made when making jeans. Okay, so none of your raw edges are going to show. I'm just going to take my scissors, and I have some threads that are coming off, and I want to. Okay. Now, if we were doing this in class, I would go over to the rotary cutter and I would take off the edge, but I'm going to do it now. just with my scissors, and I'm going to do it very carefully. But I want to, and if you don't have a good pair of scissors, fabric scissors, I would probably skip this step in all honesty. But if otherwise you really shouldn't. It's going to be a lot easier if you don't skip it. But if your scissors are dull, don't try it. Okay, so I'm going to tilt this down now. And I'm just going to make this 1/4 inch seam an 1/8 by cutting that seam allowance that I have in half. I mean, I am just taking a slither or a sliver. I'm just taking a little bit of fabric off, which is going to be kind of nice because it's going to give me a clean raw edge again. And okay, hope you've developed good habits at home. I get mugs sometimes at home to be my thread trash can right here. Now I'm going to do this last seam. Again, I'm going to cut this seam allowance in half. Okay. See how little I'm taking off? But that's about 1/4 inch. And you will see why in a moment. Okay, done. Now I am ready to turn it wrong side out. And this is where the magic happens. I am going to sew that same seam one more time at 1/4 inch. I get to the corner and notice how my corner is not sharp. If I take a pin and pull that seam out, then I get a nice corner. I want a nice corner. And now I'm going to go to the iron, and I am going to press, opening that seam up, or flattening it out. I'm going to press this. Do not press. I don't want to see a press where it's like that. I want everything totally worked out to the edge. Okay. I'm going to end this video here, go do the press, and then be back to show you the last seam and finish the pillowcase.